Okay, let's talk about it. So it says Rob's Fruit Farm consists of 100 acres on which 3 different types of apples grow. Go, Javier. On 25 acres, the farm grows Empire apples. McIntosh apples grow on 30% of the farm. The remainder of the farm grows Fuji apples. Shade in the grid below to represent the portion of the farm each type of apple occupies. Use a different color for each type of apple. Create a key to identify which color represents each type of apple. So, whatever 3 colors you have are the colors you have to represent each apple. So I'm going to use, what do I have? Purple for 25 acres that have Empire apples. Okay, so next to Empire, I'm going to write purple. I'm going to use green for the McIntosh apples on 30% of the farm. So I need to write green for McIntosh. And I have a red for the remainder, which is Fuji apples. Red. So first, I need to represent each portion on the grid. Okay, so my purple is Empire. And how many of these boxes should I shade in? Michaela. 25. So there are 100 acres, and this is a 10 by 10 grid, which means there's 10 this way and 10 that way. If I multiply 10 by 10, I get 100. That tells me the area. So the area is that 100 boxes, right? Good. So I'm going to shade in 20 and 5 more. Yes. Okay. Yes, sir.
If you use different colors.
Yes. Yes. Okay, I gave you all different colors, right? Yes. You used whatever colors you had. Okay, my McIntosh apples on my paper are green. So for whatever color you used for McIntosh apples, what portion of the grid should you color? How many boxes, Julia? 30, good. Now because I've already colored part of a whole one here, and I know 30 is just 3 whole columns, I'm just gonna start over here so I can just color 3 whole columns, make it easy on myself. And Fuji is the last one. And it says the remainder of the farm is Fuji apples. So what do I color in for Fuji apples association?
Which way?
Yeah, it's 45, or the ones that aren't colored. Good. "45 acres are Fuji apples." Now on the blanks next to our color key, it asks us to write a part to whole ratio that describes the portion of the farm that grows each type of apples. So for Empire, can you tell me a part to whole ratio that describes the purple part of our 10 by 10 grid? Wesley? 25 to 100. Okay, remember if we write it like this, that's a fraction. If it asks for a ratio, you need the word to or the colon that we read as 2. How about my McIntosh apples? Give me the ratio, Kalia.
30 to 100.
Yes. Yes, 30 to 100. And what's left is Fuji. What's the ratio for that, Marina? 30?
Wait, hold on. 45.
45 to 100. Good. So exercise 2. Exercise 2 says the shaded portion of this grid below represents the portion of a granola bar remaining. What percent does each block represent? So we know that each column or row represents 10%. I want to know what one block represents. What percent, Jordan?
Hundredths.
1/100th, yeah, but that's a fraction. So how do I write that as a percent? As a percent, Dasani?
1%? No, 1%?
1%. Yeah, so they want you to understand, right, that a fraction of a whole, when the whole is 100, is the percent. When you have 100 here on the denominator, and you want to write it as a percent, it's just the numerator. 1% is 1 out of 100. So what percent of the granola bar is left? What part is unshaded? What percent, Dewey?
20%.
20%. Nice. And how did you know that so fast?
Because 2 columns, and for each column is 10%, so then you have 2 columns, so that's 20%.
Nice, because each column is 10%. We just added 2 columns together and got 20%. What are some other ways we can write this 20%? Kalia. 20 100ths. Yes, Cecilia?
You can write it as a ratio of just 20 to 100.
You can write it as a ratio of 20 to 100. What else, Kalia?
I know how to reduce it
2/10, okay, or 1/5. Okay, is there another way, Julie?
0.20.
Yes, 0.2 or 0.20. Now let me ask you, if I wrote 0.2, does that have a different value than 0.20?
No.
No, it does not. When you have a decimal, zeros only matter if they're before another digit. Zeros at the very end after a decimal do not change the value. This and this are the same thing. Okay? So go ahead and turn to page 122. There are 3 examples or 3 figures, A, B, and C. Now, I don't really care for the way that this question is written, so we're going to do it a little bit differently, make it a little bit simpler. Okay? So it says for each figure shown, represent the gray shaded region as a percent of the whole figure. Write your answer as a decimal fraction and percent. So the reason I don't really like the way this is written is because there's 2 shades of gray in some of these. Okay, and all it says to do is gray to the whole, right? So we're only going to look at the dark gray in A and B. So for picture A right here, we're going to write the percent of the whole figure that is shaded dark gray. What's the percent of the whole figure that's shaded dark gray, Javier? 20%. Now it says we need to write it as a percent, but also as a decimal and a fraction. How do I write this as a decimal? Michaela? Yes, 0.2. And how can I write it as a fraction? Rocco? 20 over 100, or 20 100ths. And Dasani, in the second picture, we're only going to look at the dark shaded part, and I'd like you to tell me what percent of the whole is shaded dark gray in B. 25%. So you could have counted this way. You know that each column is 5 because it's shaded halfway down, and half of 10 is 5. Then you could have gone 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Or if you kind of zoom out a little bit and notice that this is 1/4 and 1/4 is 25%, either way. Okay, so how can I write this as a decimal? Tony? 0.25. And how can I write that as a fraction, Adriana? Nice. Okay, now the last one looks a little crazy. Let's do this one together. So it's important when you have shaded parts that aren't a full row or column that you make sure and mark it some way so you don't double count the shaded boxes or whatever boxes you're trying to count. So for example, here's one full row. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, that's 10, right? Here's another full row. So how many have I counted at this point? Javier? 20. So let me go ahead and write that down. We're doing this so that we don't lose track and double count or miss any. And you can go ahead and count the rest by ones. I think that's the most accurate way to do it at this point, okay? So go ahead and count the rest. Raise your hand when you know how many are left.
The shaded one?
Yes, the shaded ones. And then I already know how many there are, of course, so I will tell you if you're right. And wait on a few more. Okay, Davian, what did you get?
I think it's 48.
Right, he thinks the total's 48 because, yes, what's left is 28, and he added them together and got 48. Yes, sir. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Yes, 28. Now, I know there are other ways to do this, right? You could have added 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So we'd have had 20 and 10. And then 1, 2, 3, right? There's lots of ways to do it. It would have been 18. You still would have gotten 48. But the point is you just want to make sure that you're marking the ones you've counted so you don't double count or miss any. Okay? So let's write this as a percent. What percent, Julia? 48%. And how do I write that as a decimal, Michaela? 0.48. And how do I write that as a fraction, Ricardo?
48 over 11.
Yes, sir. Nice job. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
On picture A, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it in ST math. Well, it's not the same thing as this.
Okay.
But you know how you put two 20/100s, kind of be 2 10s.
Mm-hmm. Yes. 20/100ths is the same as 2 tenths, and that's the same as 1/5. These are all equivalent ratios. I'm sorry, fractions. I wrote it over 100 so that you could visualize and notice that a percent is just the numerator when the denominator is 100. 20 out of 100 is 20%. So yes, as you practice with these, you'll get to realize and you'll kind of, it'll kind of be like muscle memory where you'll see 1/5 and you'll know 1/5 is 20%. Right? You'll just know that, right, after working with them for a while. It's pretty cool. Okay, let's go down to part B. Part B says, what ratio is being modeled in each picture? What ratio? Have we written any ratios here? Not yet. Let's turn them into ratios. So we have A, B, and C. In A, what's the ratio? Davian. 20 to 100, yes. And in B, Liliana, what's the ratio? 25 to 100. And in C, what is the ratio, Tony? 48 to 100. What do we notice about all three of these ratios? Do you notice anything, Julie?
That they're all 100.
They all have 100. And what is that 100? Is it a part or is it the... It's the whole, right? So all of these ratios are part to whole ratios. We're not comparing shaded to unshaded. We're comparing shaded to the whole, which is 100. So how are the ratios and the percentages related? So, for example, this was 20%, 25%, and 48%. How are these related? Turn and talk with your partner. Okay, bring it back in 3, 2, and 1. Who's got a great answer? Adriana. Okay, well these are written as a percentage and these are written as ratios, so what's similar about them? I see what you're saying, but I'm looking for a different way to word it. Dasani?
Well, me and Julie said that they're odd even. Oh, wait.
No, they're not. That one's odd.
I thought. Oh, yeah.
What else, Kalia?
The part for the ratio is what the percentage is.
Exactly. They all represent part of a whole when the whole is 100. Yes, go ahead. Okay, go ahead and turn the page to 123. Page 123 starts with exercise 4. Now, it says each relationship below compares the shaded portion to the entire figure, the whole. Complete the table. We're going to do the first one together. You'll do the rest on your own, and then we will go over them. So, when the percentage is 6%, what's the decimal? Javier?
0.6.
Ooh.
Oh no, 0.06.
Yes, good catch. Why is it not 0.6, Julie?
Because it's 100.
Because it's, yes, exactly. Exactly, because it's out of 100, not out of 10. It's in the hundredths place. So, how do I write it as a fraction? Marina? Yes. And if we model it,
We actually have model in the front, right?
mm-hmm. It's not very pretty, but it works. And we're coloring 6. Now for the second one, you'll notice it says 60%. So when you draw the model, do you need to divide it both ways? Do you need to divide your model both ways so you have 100 boxes, Julie?
I would say no.
Yeah, probably not. Why? Why?
Because you can make it even.
Right, because it's an even 6 tens, right? So all we need to do is represent 6 tens. Yeah, so I've already represented 60%. I don't need to go the other way because I'm not counting any ones. I'm only counting by tens. Okay, you're going to work through the next ones on your own. I'm sweeping by to make sure that you are drawing your models correctly. You are filling in the blanks correctly, and if you're not, I'll just do a quick circle so you know if there's something you need to go back and look at again. Okay? Mr. Brown shares with the class that 70% of the students got an A on the English vocabulary quiz. Now, if Mr. Brown has 100 students create a model to show how many of the students received an A on the quiz, how should I create this model? Davian, what should I draw? Okay, hold on. We're going to wait for all the chatter and fidgeting to stop. Go ahead. Oh, hold on. Start it up again. Who's digging?
7.
Who's digging? Gopher back here. Digging. Okay, you got what you need? Do you got everything you need? Okay. Davian, tell us what to draw.
Draw a model like 100.
Okay, so the square and 100. It's kind of a lot of work, isn't it? I don't want to draw all those squares. Rihanna, what can I draw?
A model with 10.
Yes. I'm going to draw a model like this, a bar with 10. And I'm going to shade how many of them, Davian? 7. Because 7 out of 10 is still 70%. And if you notice, that was our last example in exercise 4. So let's go down to the next part. What fraction of the students received an A on the quiz? What fraction, Dewey?
70 over 100.
Yeah, 70 out of 100, or 7/10, or 7 out of 10. How can we represent this using a decimal, Vivian? Yes, 0.7. Good job. And how are the decimal, the fraction, and the percent all related, Tony?
They all have the same value?
Kind of. Yeah, they all have the same value. That's actually a great way to put it. They do. They all have the same value. Because they all represent $70 out of 100. When you have that written down, go ahead and turn to page 125. Yes, now page 125, exercise 6 looks very similar to your problem set question, which is the last page of your homework. And it says, Marty owns a lawn mowing service. His company, which consists of 3 employees, has 100 lawns to mow this week. Use the 10 by 10 grid to model how the work could have been distributed between the 3 employees. So, we're going to use our crayons again. Jordan, yours are on the floor. They're on the floor. Now, we're going to assign each employee a color, okay? So, here's 1 employee, 2, just a second, babe, just a second, and 3. And then we're going to shade in this model to represent who does how much work out of the total 100 lawns. I keep almost saying yawns, I must be tired. So, it's up to you how you would like to split it up. I believe, yes, your homework is the same way. It's up to you how you want to split up your farm for your fruit trees on your homework. So this is great practice. It's just the exact same problem, just a different situation. So I'm going to sweep and make sure that you are modeling with 3 different colors. You are counting the squares correctly, and you're converting from percent to fraction to decimal correctly. I will circle anything you need to look at again. Okay, go ahead. About exercise 6. So who wants to share how they split up their work? I like Wesley's. Wesley, how did you split up your work? Somebody must have wronged you.
I gave employee 1%.
He gave employee 1%. Hey, I said any way you want, right? And employee 2? 1%. And employee 3? 98%. I'm not going to have a purple pencil left.
Who wronged him?
Okay. Okay, level 0. Bring it back. Bring it back. Anybody else split the work up a little more fairly? Dasani, what percentages did you use?
I gave employee 1 15%.
Mm-hmm.
I gave employee 2 75%.
Okay.
And then I gave employee 3 10%.
Nice. Okay. Anybody else? Sissy?
Okay, so I gave employee 1 13%. I gave employee 2 13%. So I basically gave them all 13%, and then I had 1 acre left, so I didn't know what to do with it.
So what'd you do with it? Gotta give it to somebody.
There.
Gotta give it to somebody.
Okay, then I give it to
That
employee
person's gonna be real upset when their lawn doesn't get mowed.
I give it to employee 1.
Okay, Julie, what did you do?
I gave
Nope.
employee 1 24%, I gave employee 2 42%, and I gave employee 3 34%.
Yeah, so look around at all the hands up. Okay? That's because there's like an infinite number of ways you could split this up. Hands down. But we went with Wesley's idea. Like maybe there's just like one person in charge and he's got like a helper or 2, right? So Wesley, how do I write employee number 1's percentage as a fraction?
I could just make them not have to do it and let the person do the most.
Might as well. Okay, and how do I write that as a decimal, Rihanna? You know, 1 out of 100. So 1/100th, I need to write it in the hundredths place.
0.01.
Yes, 0.01. And it's the same for employee 2, right? Because they cut the same amount. How about employee 3? What fraction, Julie?
98 over 100.
98/100ths. So how do I write that as a decimal, Kevin?
98.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So that is lesson 24. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to pass out exit tickets. Close your books. Roll leaders to your jobs at a level 0.